Welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at gods5minutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Psalm 77:19 reads, "Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron." The reference for this comment and others above it are to the Israelites' miraculous crossing through the parted waters of the Red Sea, which then crashed down on the Egyptian forces following them. When every route of escape from Pharaoh's pursuing hordes was hopelessly impossible for any human endeavor, the great God of heaven showed that he is not only God on dry land, he is God of the waters as well. The Israelites' way was a plodding pace at a time, yet set for a wandering destiny from which no human leadership skills could deliver them, for they were many in number, had no provisions for a long wilderness sojourn, were of every age and health condition, had only the training to be expected among a bunch of runaway slaves. It is not in man that walketh to direct his steps, and their plight is amply compared to that of every man who feels the necessity to follow the Lord in fleeing from the oppressions of the Egypt of sin. The beauty and majesty of these holy words, however, is not limited to that long ago setting. They are characteristic of God's dealings and are such they fit today well as they did then. When we put our faith in God and set our purpose to follow where His hand may lead, we may expect that the one who is not limited by the barriers that seem so impossible to our efforts to use means of delivering us and give us our own songs of praise and gratitude. His way is in the sea. There are mysteries in that expression. One thinks of Jesus striding over the rolling Galilee waves in the nighttime. God's path is in the great waters. Anyone who's ever watched the storm-churned surf of a raging Pacific Ocean gale as it batters the rocks along the shoreline must wonder how hopeless would be the plight of any little rowboat caught in its fury. And anyone who has sailed his life's canoe under God's guidance has passed through storms every bit as severe, every bit as hopeless to the greatest skill of the most experienced sailor. Brother, God's way is in the great waters. The salt spray flung into our faces, the shock and thunder of life-threatening waves that whirl our emotions and jangle our nerves by tossing us first nearly into the sky, and then plunging us bows down into the brine, are the forces God uses to teach us how much greater His ways are than ours, to build our faith and make us able to fearlessly sail into the very howling teeth of any of life's conditions. Holding God's hand through the great waters has through the centuries produced a breed of Christians who can assert with Paul, "I therefore take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses for Christ's sake, for when I am weak, then am I strong." The psalmist well told us that God's footsteps are not known. That night on the Red Sea shore there was no visible angel from heaven stretching out his wings and hovering over the long Israelite column. Instead, there were two men, two common, everyday men who wore clothes, ate food, got tired, needed encouragement to use their hands to lead the people. But they were not without divine help. There were no visible footprints tracking through the soil that a few moments before had lain at the bottom of the ocean waters. But footprints there were, though only to be glimpsed with the eyes of faith. God never calls His people to go where He has not walked before them. It is safe to go where He leads. As the poet has it, though the road be rough and stormy, trackless as a foaming sea, Thou hast trod this way before me, and I gladly follow Thee. He who prepared the ocean that night, He who holds in His hand the power to separate it, wants to walk before you and me, considering our inabilities and weaknesses, just as He did those ancient Israelites. Guide us safely to the other shore, destroy our enemies behind us, and fill our lives with the comfort and assurance of His mighty blessing. May you be careful to serve Him. Have you talked to Him today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at godsfiveminutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.
If you live within the broadcast area of KNEO Radio, we have a podcast just for you. The KNEO Community Connection keeps your finger on the pulse of what's coming up in the four-state area, telling you about upcoming events you don't want to miss, organizations in our communities doing great work, and conversations with the dynamic citizens who are behind it all. There's a lot going on around you that you don't want to miss. This is Luke Taylor. Join me each week as we talk about what's happening with the people who are making it happen. Brought to you by KNEO Radio 91.7 FM and the Sky High Podcast Network. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts.